Hi guys, so as Boris Johnson was delivering his quote-unquote resignation speech in front of Number 10, his former chief advisor Dominic Cummings tweeted this. "I know that guy and I'm telling you, he doesn't think it's over. He's thinking, there's a war. Weird shit happens in a war. Play for time, play for time. I can get out of this. I got a mandate. Members love me. Get to September." And then he goes on to say, if MPs leave him in situ, there'll be carnage. Now, I'm not a fan of Dominic Cummings, very much not the case, but he had spent a lot of time with Boris Johnson. He understands pretty much how Boris Johnson ticks, and he may be right here. So what is he talking about? Boris Johnson, in his resignation speech, never really said he was resigning. Now, normally, Prime Minister, when they resign, will say, I am resigning from today or whatever. I'll be resigning from next week. But Boris Johnson talked about staying in place until a new leader was found. And he said he would support that leader. He also, some are suggesting that he will stay in place until the Conservative Party conference in October. That's months away. And what's interesting here is he says, I got a mandate. And this is something that Boris Johnson has been talking about over the last number of days. This idea that 14 million people voted for him. Obviously, 14 million people did not vote for Boris Johnson. He's the MP of Uxbridge, so he couldn't win. He couldn't win over 14 million people. But he's trying to sell the idea that he's the one who won the 80-seat majority. People voted for him, not so much for the party or for the local candidate, which is, in a sense, is correct. Many people said, I'm backing Boris, even though they would be voting for their own respective candidate in their constituency. This idea of September, get to September, meaning that if Johnson can remain in place, maybe all of this can sort of die down. And he can stay in his position. Johnson has a knack for surviving. He's done it before, and I've said it before as well, how it's a cycle. You get to the beginning of the week, you think he's going to resign, then by the end of the week, it's all forgotten about. And there's a real risk here as well that unless there's continuous pressure put on Johnson, this could all be forgotten about in a few months' time. The actual fact that he stood at that lectern and talked about leaving or talked about resigning could all be forgotten by the time we get to September. And this idea that there's a war, weird shit happens in a war. This is a war with the public. This is a war with other members of the Conservative Party. And Johnson can come up with all sorts of excuses why he should stay. He may attempt to do something erratic. It's typical of Johnson to do such things. And this could reinforce his position in the House, in Number 10. I've seen an interview with, I think it was Chris Phillip, who was talking about, this is Chris Phillip, who resigned on Thursday morning and on Thursday afternoon was talking about how he would be willing to support Boris Johnson again. He was challenged on whether he was unresigning, and he said, no, that's a stupid thing to say. But in a sense, he was happy to throw his support behind the Prime Minister. And I think this is what could happen. Boris Johnson claims to resign, and then within a week, the people who were ready to stick the knife in are actually back by his side again, because these people are career politicians. They don't care. They don't actually have any principles. If they see Johnson as strong again, then they'll rally to him. And this is why it's important that what happens over the next number of days in regards to the vote of no confidence, it's going to be very interesting, because the Labour Party have a possibility, it's not guaranteed, but they have a possibility to bring down Boris Johnson's government. But if Johnson is able to show his ministers and the party and his supporters that he is still in charge, that he can still win things, he's not gone, I think the rebellion may dissipate. This is really insane, but I think what Dominic Cummings is talking about here could actually be true. And it's important that MPs do not leave him in this position. He needs to be removed as soon as possible, because the longer he stays, the more permanent it will be. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.